So being a conscious elder leader, again, Y is for younger, elders for elder, but looking to have the combination of both here takes a sense of purpose. So we'll look to see, okay, purpose. Now, there's some work that I've been exploring related to knowing the seven principles of purpose. And you can say there's a spectrum of consciousness that relate to seven in general. So we're looking at seven principles of purpose. And this is from a book, Manifesto for a Meaningful Life, from above down, inside out. This is a chiropractic term, and the book was actually written by memoirs of Chuck Ribley, and the book was put together by his daughter Anne Ribley, and who was a co-founder of Life University. It's the university where I went to chiropractic school, where I actually loved every minute of going to school there. So I thought I'd share some essences here in respect to his book, but I think it lends itself to our own awareness. So, looking at universal intelligence, now in chiropractic, they use the term universal intelligence gives all of its qualities continually to its creation. But another name for universal intelligence, and make this more actualized, is being. You can say universal being. And there's an innate intelligence within each of us, which relates to our own aspects of that one being. And I think what Robert was saying in his work with the younger folks working with him, there was a blending here, or a union together. But we want to look at in terms of applying that principle of above innate intelligent being from universal intelligent being down and then inside. Now, inside, you think about inside through our heart, our mind, our body, and then out into the world, the influence we extend. Now, looking at in terms of the seven principles of purpose that the little book goes into, is the first one is inspiration. And you can say inspiration can relate to having a sense of patience, but inspiration related to, you can say, our heart being in position in its proper rhythms. So it actually we begin to feel that inspiration that comes from above. You can say from beyond our conscious awareness, but a feeling in consciousness that permeates our heart related to being, the feeling of being within our heart. And then once we sense that, you can say there's an awakening, and there's a relaxation where we realize there's something more beyond our temporal existence here in the world. And it brings kind of an aha experience. Well, there is something more. And then when we recognize that there's something more, we learn how to surrender to that influence that comes from above. And we surrender to it because we just love the influence of it, which allows, you can say, for our body to be infiltrated with purpose. There's a sensing, well, I'm grounded in this from above down inside. And there's a sensing of like I got the gas to continue on, to provide something where magic can happen. And magic happens when you can say the invisible, something invisible from the higher ranges of things becomes visible. And that's magic, and say magic happening in that respect, which allows for discovery. Discovery in, say, each moment or in each day, where we're sensing something we may not have been aware of before, but now we are. And it would gives us a greater sense of, you can say, intrinsic momentum. We're actually within, you can say, the flow of what's happening from above down, inside out. And they talk about cognitive qualities. We're in alignment with our internal being, which is actually getting out into the world. So looking at those areas of seven principles, these are seven principles that are outlined in that little book of seven principles of purpose there, and to see, okay, how does this apply to us? And to go along further, we'll look at surrender, the aspect of surrender within those principles. So surrender is a process that Chuck writes in his book, quotes, and then surrender, he mentions surrender to the stillness where the noise of the world fades. Surrender to the stillness where the noise of the world fades. And then that's Chuck's, but then I added surrender to the stillness where the light comes through there. It's like there needs to be a sense of stillness for things to fade that would have entangled us. And because of that, it opens up to something of that light that actually comes from above down. And to continue on further, okay, my friend Eugen Pack, some of us may have been aware of his work recently or his presentation there, and he had this to say about surrender. At such times, leadership requires abandoning old habits of mental and emotional navigation. So even within ourselves, you can say as we become aware of things, we see old ways of how we reacted to things can begin to be let go of because we have, you can say, a greater awareness in our consciousness. And then switching to divine, use the term divine, but you can say what we're outlining here with the chiropractic terminology is innate navigation, where there's full perceptive surrender to that innate navigation, full alertness. We're aware. And then maximum flexibility in each moment. It really does take flexibility. And when we get caught of being not flexible, like we feel the pressure of that, as Joe was mentioning in the chat there. So, in looking at that, then looking further, okay, what more can we see with this? Innate navigation. So, I want to look to explore this a little bit further. What does it take for innate navigation? So we use the term in universal intelligence, but another way of saying that is universal oneness. It's actually a universal oneness of love, you can say. Love permeates everything in principle, and that coming down in terms of love being influencing all of us, where innate intelligence is where your individualized being aspect of universal love there, the oneness of that, your being aspect of the light of love. Okay, trust you're following me along here. Again, we'll talk more about how this we can make this real for ourselves. But you can say being oneself, like all of this, there's a certain universal oneness of love. And as we're actually the individual aspect of that, there's still a sense of oneself. And I think what Robert was saying before there, like we're all part of being oneself there. Let me explore further. So we're looking again above, down, inside, inside, through our heart. Again, through our heart. Our heart needs to be in these proper, you can say, proper rhythms to actually have a sensing of that feeling wise, where things may not be aware so much consciously, but at least we begin to sense it in heart. And then it filters into our mind, through our body, out into the world, that influence. But then looking at it in terms of our conscious mind navigation of heart, mind, and body, surrendered to orientation from above. Okay, I know I'm giving you a bit here to digest, but our conscious mind is so important for navigation. You can say our conscious mind is to act as a captain. You can say of our capacities of heart, mind, and body. But our captain needs to be under the command. You can surrender, you can say, from an orientation power from a coherent heart. So our orientation comes through our heart, felt through our heart there. But our heart needs to be positioned to begin to actually have our conscious mind position our heart so we begin to be in alignment with that orientation power that comes from above, down, inside, out. Okay. And then ultimately, though, our meaning in life, our fulfillment in life is, I think, all of us long to play our integrated part in flow with each other. And you can say sometimes we might have bounced up against each other or reacted to each other, and then you can say the flow kind of stops. But to learn how to be in flow with each other so that there's without entanglements of dislikes and likes. I included this, we might, for all of us, we like certain things, we dislike certain things, but if we're entangled with our dislikes and likes, that interferes with our ability to play our part in flow. And you think of Eugen's words, we're full perceptive surrender, full alertness, and maximum flexibility in each moment here, where there's divine innate navigation, where we know the collective power at hand. Now, when we're in flow together, you can say there's power at hand. And when we're actually in, you can say, agreement or in action together, Robert was saying, working with a person, it actually, the energy blends together, and there's a lot more power than what we can do functionally individually. And so, in letting the light of love, you can say the light of love restore our world through our one self. You can say our ultimate end, end for all of us is letting the light of love restore our world through our one self. So, okay, let's continue on. I know that's a bit to digest, but I have other ways to help digest that better. Okay, so we're looking at Yelder, the conscious Yelder well-being experience. I've used this diagram before, but you can say when something extends out from us, being aware of our influence extending out from us. And as a chiropractor, we recognize proper alignment of the spine, proper muscle tone, proper nerve flow. And then also the work that I've been doing with heart math is proper heart rhythms there. And when things are conditioned that way, and there's other ways too, we can describe the sound conditions for us to have a well-being experience, then we have a well-being experience. We're enjoying life. We have resilience when things come up there. But when things come along, like impatience, or we want things done sooner than later, or we're getting entangled with the world, you can say partly with our getting entangled with our likes and dislikes. And then at times we might be resenting or cursing our circumstances, which shrivels, you can say, our field, contracts our experience. And then you can say we're unconscious. We default to the typical human experience there. And that's something to recognize when we're contracting as a starting point. And as we go along in maturity and say elder wisdom, we recognize when things start to impinge upon us. And then we recognize something's contracting in our field, and we look to see how we can stop that and move in a direction of what it takes to restore, you can say, our field, our influence there sooner than later. Sometimes we may get caught on certain things and it might stew a little bit, and then it takes maybe a little bit longer to get back on track. But what does it take to stay resilient, to recognize when we're contracting, but then to neutralize that, to stop that? And in the course that we've been looking to do with conscious healthy aging, there's lots of content that I expanded on in that respect. But in terms of now, today, is surrendering to the stillness where the noise subsides and the light shines. And part of that process I find is recognizing when we're contracting, stilling my mind, stilling our mind, and then letting innate being come through. It's a little process that I've been working with that I find been working well. Recognize when my field is contracting, stilling my mind, not getting entangled why this is happening or that's happening, but just stilling my mind in the face of that contraction, and then letting. You can say, and letting innate being come through. And a part of those seven principles talks about inspiration, how there's always a constant flow from above down, inside out. There's always a constant flow of being looking to come through us and helping to get back on track by using that process. And then baseline shift in identity from human to innate being. So let's look at it in terms of our identity. You could say all transformation occurs by a change in identity, personal identity. So considering ourselves as I am an innate being expressing, rather that instead of saying that I'm only human, or I'm only human, that I have these faults and tendencies, and that I may use those as excuses. I'm only human. But to change our identity, to shift that, where actually I'm an innate being expressing there, which allows us to recenter ourselves and get back to being an elder leader, a Yelder leader. Okay. So you think about all of this, what I just shared. This is some work that Joe Pine has done with his work with transformation there, where he talks about real transformation takes place after time reflecting, making meaning out of the experience, and integrating it into your life. So again, we might still have an experience that we're only human and default to that at times, but it takes time before actually we have an ownership that we are innate beings expressing. And for some of us, we may have been further along in that respect, but sometimes we may get caught, and that's the time to see what it takes to shift back and to abide in this place. So lately, too, a friend of ours, John Gray, had this to say. So it's not so much let our focus being on where we're coming from, it's rather than where we're going to. So let our focus be on where we're coming from rather than where we're going to. So you can say expressing from above, down, inside out. We're looking to come from that position, expressing from above, down, inside out. And then playing our part. As we're doing that, we're actually playing our part. And then we have a sense of meaningfulness in that respect. We have a sense of fulfillment. And however long we're on the face of this earth, we're playing our part. And you can say we're ascending in that way and having the experience, a well-being experience at all ages that we're at. Okay. Okay, so that's a bit to consider there. So Truck Ribley talks about surrender to the stillness where the noise of the world fades and the light comes through. So let's have a little meditation time to help integrate this in our hearts here. So if you like to uh, sit up straight there, put your feet flat on the ground here, flat on the floor, and you may want to put your hand over your heart if you're comfortable with that. Usually I like to have my left hand over my heart, which is our receiving hand. And then uprighting yourself, uprighting our spine, that puts us in a position of receptivity. If you'd like to close your eyes, if you want to turn your camera off, that's fine too. So let's just breathe together. And imagining, and if you're okay with it, imagine your nose being in your heart, and you're breathing through your heart. You're breathing in slow and out slower. Again, breathing in through your heart and out slower. And as we awaken to our being, our individual being, but as we awaken to our being together as one, as one self, there's a sensing that we're not alone in this world. There's a sensing that we have capacity beyond human capability. We have capacity that derives itself from above, down, inside, out. As we breathe that sensing, letting our heart come to rest, and letting that influence from above fill our hearts, that we may feel inspired, and that whatever we've shared so far this evening, some things may have been over our heads, or some things may have stuck with us. Consider what did stick and affirm that. Feel the feeling of that. And breathing in through your heart and out through our heart slowly. Coming to stillness. There's no need to figure things out. Just be still. Let your mind be still. And acknowledge that your conscious mind has a job to do. Your conscious mind is to allow your heart to be in position to receive what is above. And how we do that is through patience, perspective, wisdom, purpose, alignment, alignment and love.